This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.
Hello, Happy New Year, and welcome to the FPL Draft Zone, a podcast all about draft FPL. I am Dom Crofts. I hope you are well. I hope you had a lovely Christmas, a fantastic New Year's Eve, and of course, I hope just past the halfway stage of Game Week 19 that your fantasy team is well on course for yet another victory. If it's not, though, have no fear, because Game Weeks 20 and 21 are right around the corner, and by right around the corner, I mean right around the corner. And we're going to be focusing on both those game weeks in just a moment. But before we get going, a few requests from us to you. First of all, if you're watching us on YouTube, please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. It would also be great if you could tell your friends about us so we can up that subscriber count. And if you listen to us in audio form, whatever podcast platform of choice you choose, please ensure you are also subscribed to the pod so you never miss an episode. And it would also be fantastic. It takes no time, by the way, to leave us a 5-star review and some kind words. Okay, it takes a little bit of time, but not that much time. I'm talking like 20 seconds. Just scroll down, hit the 5 stars, put good pod in the comments, and everyone's happy. Right? Let's do it. That'd be lovely. Okay, let's take a look at Game Weeks 20 and 21 because they are coming up very soon indeed. Game Week 20 kicks off on Saturday, the 3rd of January, 2026 and runs through until the end of Sunday, the 4th of January. You then have Monday, the 5th of January to get your waivers in order before Game Week 21 kicks off on Tuesday, the 6th of January. And that game week runs through Wednesday and all the way to the end of Thursday with a game between Arsenal and Liverpool. We're going to talk you through all the fixtures that you have to get your head around right now, starting in Game Week 20 with those games on Saturday, the 3rd of January, which all kick off with a 12:30 p.m. game between Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest. It's Brighton taking on Burnley in the Battle of the Bees at the Amex, and Wolves taking on West Ham in the Battle of the Ws at Molineux before an early evening kickoff between Bournemouth and Arsenal. Then on Sunday, a classic derby at Ellen Road. Leeds United against Manchester United. Everton take on Brentford at the Hill Dickinson. Fulham entertain Liverpool at Craven Cottage. Newcastle take on Crystal Palace at St James's Park. And Spurs play host to Sunderland in North London before the game week wraps up between Manchester City and Chelsea at the Etihad. All sort of talk right now that Enzo Maresca could be about to lose his job, so Chelsea could be managerless for that one. Then, as I said, you have Monday to get your waivers in order ahead of Game Week 21, which kicks off with one game on Tuesday, the 6th of January. That game takes place in East London with Nuno Espirito Santo taking on his former club, Nottingham Forest. And then on Wednesday, most of the other fixtures do take place. Bournemouth take on Spurs at the Vitality. Brentford take on Sunderland at the G-Tech. Crystal Palace play host to Aston Villa. Everton are at home to Wolves. Fulham at home to Chelsea in a West London derby. And Manchester City are at home to Brighton. There are also 2 games kicking off at 8:15 on Wednesday. Those games are Burnley against Manchester United and Newcastle United against Leeds United. And then Game Week 21 wraps up on Thursday, the 8th of January at the Emirates Stadium with a game between the champions Liverpool and the team that are dreaming of being champions, Arsenal. We shall see how that one goes. So what we're going to do this week is, rather than go through fixture by fixture, we're going to go through team by team in alphabetical order and walk you through our best picks for those teams given the fixtures that they face. But before we do that, let's take a look at the teams who have 2 home games over these 2 game weeks. And there are 5 teams lucky enough to be in that position. Bournemouth have 2 home games against London opposition. They play Arsenal and Spurs in Game Weeks 20 and 21. Everton have home games against Brentford and Wolves at the Hill Dickinson. Liverpool and Chelsea visit Fulham and Craven Cottage. And Newcastle have home games against Crystal Palace and Leeds United. And Manchester City, who are absolutely flying at the moment, they've got 2 home games as well. They are at home to Chelsea and at home to Brighton. As for the teams with 2 away games, an unenviable position for Nottingham Forest, who go to Aston Villa and West Ham. For Manchester United, who travel to Leeds and Burnley. For Liverpool, who go to Fulham and Arsenal. Sunderland are away at Spurs and Brentford. And Chelsea go to Manchester City and Fulham. So what does all that mean? Well, it means, in our humble opinion, that the teams with the best fixtures over Game Weeks 20 and 21 are Everton, who have 2 home games against Brentford and Wolves. A lovely set of fixtures for the Toffees there. Manchester City, who have home games against Chelsea and Brighton. Newcastle, who haven't been too hot away from home, but have been doing all right at home, and they have 2 home games against Crystal Palace, who are struggling right now, and Leeds United, who are not. And then it's Manchester United we've put in here as well. For all their struggles, they are taking on 2 newly promoted sides in the form of Leeds United and Burnley. So, as I said, we're going to go through team by team and talk you through a few waiver options for your draft team. So let's start with Arsenal, the league leaders, who have games away at Bournemouth in game week 20 and at home to Liverpool in game week 21. Their win over Aston Villa in midweek was hugely impressive. Gabriel returned for that one, but Piero Hincapié retained his place in the starting 11 because Ricardo Calafiori is still nursing a muscular injury, and he has now started 8 consecutive games, the Ecuadorian, for Arsenal. He certainly seems to be the next man up as Arsenal's third choice centre-back should Gabriel not be able to play 2 games in a week. He is also next man up at left back if Ricardo Calafiori is not fit. So I think it's worth keeping Hincapié in your thoughts ahead of these 2 games because they do come very quickly. And I cannot see Gabriel starting both of those games or Calafiori. I think Hincapié will be involved in at least one of those games, and he obviously is the easiest route into that Arsenal backline. Another option for you, given the news that Declan Rice is now recovering from an injury. He missed that Villa game, of course. Next man up for Arsenal in midfield certainly seems to be Mikel Merino, ahead of the likes of Eberici, Eze and Christian Norgard. He's got 6 attacking returns for the season, 3 goals and 3 assists. And he also has the added benefit that he can be utilised as a striker. So 2 good options for you from Arsenal there. And 2 other options for you from the Gunners are their new forwards. And by new, I mean newly fit. Gabriel Jesus making a 13-minute cameo against Aston Villa in game week 19 and scoring a lovely little goal. Squad rotation must be imminent for the Gunners given the sheer number of games they've got. And I would expect Jesus to earn a start sooner rather than later. And Kai Havertz was also back in the squad for that game against Aston Villa. He's been out for nearly a year. But in the last 2 seasons, he's played 4,499 minutes for Arsenal in the league, which works out at the equivalent of 49.9 games. So we're talking 50 games. And he's had 35 attacking returns. So even though there's all sorts of talk that Arsenal have spent a lot of money on their strikers and haven't got a striker who they can actually rely on, Kai Havertz does a pretty passable impression of a striker who they can rely on. 35 attacking returns in just under 50 Premier League games over the course of the last 2 seasons for Arsenal. As for Aston Villa, who lost to the Gunners in game week 19, they have a home game against Nottingham Forest in game week 20, and then they go to Crystal Palace in game week 21. They've got a terrible record against Crystal Palace, who knocked them out of the FA Cup in the semi-final stage last year, of course, and also won comprehensively at Villa Park earlier in the season when Villa were yet to get going. A couple of picks for you from Unai Emery's side. Yuri Tielemans remains in our thoughts. He's had 5 successive starts, having recovered from injury. Got 2 attacking returns in his last 4 games and 1 DEFCON return. But he's also hit double-figure DEFCON returns 4 times in his last 7 starts. So he offers both an attacking threat and a potential DEFCON threat as well. And Emi Buendia is our other pick from Villa. He started the last 2 games now as Villa's number 10. And after this game, Villa's run is pretty tasty. Yes, they have Forest in game week 20. Then it's Palace in 21 before a home game against Everton, a trip to Newcastle, and then a home game against Brentford, and then a trip to leaky Bournemouth, who will surely by that point be without Antoine Semenyo. So Aston Villa, even though they lost to Arsenal in midweek, have good opportunities to bounce back pretty quickly, and Emi Buendia could be key to their hopes there. As for Bournemouth, they have 2 home games over these 2 game weeks. They have North London opposition on both occasions. They play Arsenal at home in game week 20 and Spurs at home in game week 21. The player we're focusing on here is Justin Kluivert, who put in his best performance of the season for the Cherries in that draw with Chelsea in game week 19. Scored, racked up 0.80 XG. Bournemouth as a team racked up 3.49 XG against Chelsea. And in that game, Justin Kluivert also hit 11 defensive contributions, so just missing the threshold by 1. And with the news that Antoine Semenyo is expected to join Manchester City at the start of the January transfer window, Bournemouth are going to need a new talisman, and surely Justin Kluivert is going to be that man. As for Brentford, they have an away game at Everton in game week 20 and then a home game against Sunderland in game week 21. Our pick from the Bees is Nathan Collins, who has had 5 defensive contribution returns in his last 5 starts, picked up 1 clean sheet in that time as well. And interestingly, he's racked up 1.9 XGI for the season. He's not had an attacking return yet, but last season he really did enjoy himself in front of goal, finished the season with 2 goals and 7 assists. And he is tracking to have some attacking returns sooner rather than later. So Collins could be a double threat for you, both defensively and offensively. And Everton away and Sunderland at home should give him a couple of opportunities to do some damage. As for Brighton, they have home games against Burnley in game week 20 and away game in game week 21 against Manchester City. We heard the news, of course, that Yakuba Minte limped off in game week 19 and may miss game week 20's plum home game, really, against Burnley. But that means that Diego Gomez should come into your thinking. He started 6 of the last 7 games for the Seagulls now. He's got a goal and an assist in that time. And I would expect him to start this one, given the news that Minte is now injured and that Mitoma is, of course, still recovering from injury. Jorginho Rutter was dropped against West Ham, or potentially rested. He had started the previous 4. His XGI numbers have been impressive. His underlying statistics telling a different story to his actual statistics. So I would fancy either Gomez or Rutter to do some damage in that home game against Burnley in game week 20. And Ferdi Kadioglu is probably their best defensive option right now. He got an assist against West Ham. He's on set pieces. And even though he got an assist against West Ham, his XGI numbers were actually higher in the games against Arsenal and Sunderland. So a good opportunity from Kadioglu there to give you some defensive returns and also maybe pick you up some offensive returns as well. And that Burnley game in game week 20 looks very tempting indeed. As for Burnley, they go to Brighton in game week 20 before they have a home game against Manchester United in game week 21. They suffered some bad news this week with Josh Cullen being ruled out for the rest of the season with injury. But Martin Dubravka is still an option for your draft side. He is averaging 3.6 saves per match right now. He's made 3 or more saves in 14 matches this season, which means that if he had been your goalkeeper, you would have earned an extra point 14 times this season. He's also made 6 or more saves 3 times, which would have garnered you 2 extra points. And he's made 5 saves 5 times. So he would have got you that extra point and just missed out on that 2-point threshold. So you could do worse than Dubravka in goal, although, of course, you're really playing him for save points rather than clean sheets at this point. Another option for you from Burnley, Josh Lauren, their midfielder, who has started the last 3 matches and seems a fairly decent bet for DEFCON. In game week 17, he got 4 points against Bournemouth thanks to a 15 defensive contribution return. In game week 18, 5 points against Everton and a 13 DEFCON return. And then in this game week just gone against Newcastle, 10 points against Newcastle thanks to a goal and 12 defensive contributions. Chelsea have 2 away games and possibly no manager to guide them through them. They go to Manchester City in game week 20 before they travel to Craven Cottage for a West London derby against Fulham. Couple of options for you from the Blues. Esteval Villian earned his first 90-minute appearance in quite some time in that draw with Bournemouth. Chelsea have only had 1 win in their last 7 matches, so they certainly need to change things up. If Maresca is still in charge, I would expect Esteval Villian to start this game against Manchester City. He got an assist against Bournemouth, racked up 0.44 XGI, and he certainly seems one of their more threatening players over the course of the season so far. And Liam Delap, again, seems a favourite of Maresca. So if he does stay in the job, he could be an option for you as well. Played 86 minutes against Bournemouth. Prior to his injury, he'd started 3 of the previous 5 games for the Blues. And Chelsea actually have some pretty tasty fixtures coming up. So whoever does come in for Maresca, if indeed he does go, has got a pretty easy start to his reign. Brentford at home in game week 22. Crystal Palace away in 23, West Ham at home in 24, Wolves away in 25, Leeds at home in 26, and Burnley at home in 27. So after these 2 away games, it is really a good idea to start thinking about picking up some Chelsea assets for your draft team. Crystal Palace, well, they have an away game at Newcastle in game week 20, and then they have a home game against Aston Villa in game week 21. Few options for you from the Eagles. Jeremy Pino has racked up 5.7 XGI for the season so far. He's only got a goal and an assist to his name, but he also has started to earn a few DEFCON points as well, racked up 13 defensive contributions against Spurs in game week 18. And you would think that those underlying attacking numbers will reap dividends in reality sooner rather than later. So Pino is our pick for Crystal Palace. And Adam Wharton continues to be a safe DEFCON option for them as well. He's hit double figures for DEFCON in 7 successive games now, hitting the threshold 4 times. Everton, 2 home fixtures for them, and this is the team to target, in my opinion. Everton have a home game against Brentford in game week 20, who do not travel well, and then they have a home game against bottom of the table Wolves, who are not very good. So options for you from Everton. Vitaly Mykolenko is our defender of choice, although to be honest, any defender that's free on the waivers is a good pickup from Everton right now. He got an 8-point return, Mykolenko, against Nottingham Forest, as did Jake O'Brien. He's yet to have an attacking return for the season, but Everton have kept 4 clean sheets in their last 6 matches now, and you'd fancy them to get at least one more across these next 2 game weeks. And James Garner is really having a quietly brilliant season for the Toffees. A goal and an assist for him against Nottingham Forest. He's had 4 successive defensive contribution returns as well. And unbelievably, he's created 7 big chances for Everton this season, which ranks him as the joint 4th best player for big chances created in the entire league. So quietly going under the radar, James Garner. And with those 2 home games in mind, could well be a player worth picking up for a couple of weeks at least. Another option for Everton is Tierno Barry, who has got 2 goals in his last 4 starts now. And we talked about Brentford and Wolves being pretty iffy opposition for Everton. Well, Wolves are ranked 18th for expected goals conceded and bottom for actual goals against. And Brentford, their away form has been unspectacular, to say the least. They are ranked 17th for away form. So you'd certainly fancy Everton to pick up 6 points across these 2 fixtures. And if Tierno Barry starts up front in one or both of those games, you'd have to fancy him to get a return or 2. As for Fulham, they have 2 home games as well. They're at home to Liverpool in game week 20 and at home to Chelsea in game week 21. Our pick from the Cottagers is Anthony Robinson, their returning fullback, who has earned 21 points from his 3 starts this season, having recovered from that long-term injury layoff. He's averaging 7 points per match right now. And we must not forget that last season he was pretty prolific going forward as well. 10 assists last season from an expected assist rate of 4.17. So he certainly overperformed, but he also overperformed the season before. So it might not be an anomaly. It might just be the kind of player that Anthony Robinson is. Leeds United have a home game against Manchester United in game week 20, and then they travel to Newcastle in game week 21. A couple of options for you from Leeds, who are flying really at the moment. Ethan Ampadu, their midfielder, has got 8 defensive contribution returns in 16 matches this season, and he's got 4 of those defensive contribution returns in his last 7 matches. He's also been amongst the goals in that time as well, so he's a decent pickup for you, particularly with a home game against Manchester United. And I'd expect him to get some defensive contribution returns against Newcastle as well. And Anton Stack is the man who can do everything. 3 goals for the season, 5 assists, 6 returns in his last 7 matches. He's across set pieces, and he's picked up 5 defensive contribution returns as well. So Stack is still free on the waivers. He may seem like an unfashionable pick, but he's certainly a very decent option for your draft side. Liverpool, well, they've started to show some semblance of form over the last few weeks, but they're going to be tested in game weeks 20 and 21 because they have 2 away games, away at Fulham in 20 and away at Arsenal in game week 21. But we want to give some flowers to Ryan Gravenberch right now, who we have talked about many times on this podcast over the course of the season, saying that his underlying numbers suggest he is massively overperforming and it is just not sustainable. And yet it is. He keeps scoring. He keeps being involved in goals. 4 goals and 3 assists for the season so far from 1.9 XGI. He's also picked up 3 defensive contribution returns in his last 5 matches. So he is a safe pick and a good route into that Liverpool midfield because he is doing more in an attacking way than anybody would have predicted. And he is, of course, still racking up those defensive contribution returns as well. He's going to be integral to the second half of the season for Liverpool if they are going to get their campaign back on track. Manchester City have 2 home games against Chelsea in 20 and Brighton in game week 21. Jeremy Doku is expected to return imminently. Pep Guardiola has not ruled him out of the game against Sunderland in game week 19, which is taking place this evening as we record this. He's played 935 minutes this season, which works out the equivalent of 10.3 matches. And in that time, he's got a goal and 6 assists. He is having a very good season. Some doubt over his long-term future with the imminent signing of Antoine Semenyo, but it's going to be very difficult for Doku to be dropped if he continues to show the sort of form he has done this season. So I think he would be a decent option for your draft team, and he's likely to be free in quite a few waivers because of the injury he suffered a few weeks ago, and probably less available on a lot of waivers, but available on some, is Tijani Reinders, who has been excellent of late. Started 5 of the last 6 matches, got 3 attacking returns in that time, including 2 in his last 2 matches. And against Nottingham Forest, he really helped change the game for City. He was pushed much further forward, almost playing as a second striker behind Erling Haaland. So if they do that again, he is really going to be an excellent pickup for your draft team. Manchester United were underwhelming in their 1-1 draw with Wolves in Game Week 19. They go on the road in Game Week 20 and 21 to Leeds United and Burnley, respectively. It's difficult to recommend many of their picks. I think a lot of us went for their defence against Wolves, assuming that United could keep a clean sheet against a team like Wolverhampton Wanderers. They couldn't, so we're not going there again. We are going to go for Casemiro, though, who seems like a safe bet for DEFCON points. He got a 6-point return against Wolves. He's had 8 double-figure DEFCON returns for the season. He's hit the threshold 7 times, and he's had 7 attacking returns as well. So a bit like Ryan Gravenberch, certainly doing more than anyone would have predicted from an attacking perspective, and could offer you a couple of different routes to points if you get him in your draft team. Newcastle United have 2 home games. They're at home to Crystal Palace in Game Week 20, and then they have a home game against Leeds United in Game Week 21. I want to talk about Jacob Murphy this week. He was dropped for the game against Burnley with Harvey Barnes preferred by Eddie Howe, but he is still racking up those underlying numbers. In 72 minutes against Chelsea, 0.52 XGI. In 67 minutes against Manchester United, 0.19 XGI. And in 18 minutes against Burnley, 0.28 XGI. I would expect him to start in these games. He's got an excellent record against Crystal Palace over the last couple of seasons. He's got a couple of goals across those games. So I would expect him to be involved in these matches, and I would expect him to get a return in at least one of them. And Lewis Miley is quietly going about his business as a new look right back. Obviously, there's no Livramento, there's no Kieran Trippier for the Toon right now. His strong defensive contribution returns make him a worthwhile option, despite the fact you won't get any clean sheet points from him. In Game Week 13, 12 defensive contributions hit the threshold. Game Week 17, 16 defensive contributions hit the threshold. Game Week 19, 18 defensive contribution returns hit the threshold. Has also scored a goal in that time as well. So even though he is another unfashionable pick, if you want a safe bet of defensive contribution returns, you could do worse than pick up Lewis Miley. Nottingham Forest are on the road twice. They go to Aston Villa in Game Week 20 and West Ham in Game Week 21. Amari Hutchinson remains their standout performer of late. He started the last 6 games, got a goal, an assist, and a DEFCON return against Spurs as well. He's got 1.86 XGI across those fixtures, and I would expect him to have a bit of a field day against West Ham United if Sean Dyche can get a tune out of his side in time for that one. And one player to tell you about, but not actually recommend, John Victor, who has started the last 4 in goal for Forest at the expense of Matt Sells. No one's really sure if it's because Sells is injured still or not fully fit, or whether or not Sean Dyche just prefers John Victor. I guess we'll find out over the next couple of weeks. But to be honest, Nottingham Forest statistically do not look like a good bet from a defensive perspective. 0.3 XGC in that comprehensive win against Spurs. But since then, 1.50 expected goals conceded against Fulham, 1.45 XGC against Manchester City, and this week 1.44 XGC against Everton. So I would not be going near Forest defence unless you absolutely are desperate for a keeper and you have a non-playing second keeper. Only then would I really consider John Victor. Spurs have a home game against Sunderland in Game Week 20 before they go to the seaside to play Bournemouth in Game Week 21. A couple of options for you from Spurs. One who is not really an option for Spurs, but could be a longer-term option for your draft team, is Brennan Johnson, who has fallen out of favour under Thomas Frank and is expected to leave in the January transfer window. All sorts of reports that Crystal Palace have agreed a fee for Brennan Johnson. Talk as well that Bournemouth are keen to sign him. Last season, finished the campaign with 11 goals and 6 assists. The season before, 5 goals and 12 assists. Has not really had a look in this season for Spurs. But if he goes for big money, which he will go for big money, about £35 million they're talking at the moment, then he's surely going to be a regular starter for whoever he signs for. He's not going to leave Spurs to become a bit part player somewhere else. He will have first team intentions, and I would expect him to be a first team regular wherever he goes and to deliver end product. So it could be a decent time to make a move for Johnson now, knowing that he won't play in game week 20, but he could well be at his new club by game week 21. Option for you who is likely to stay at Spurs, Rodrigo Bentancur, another midfielder for them. He's hit DEFCON in 4 of his last 5 matches, and he hit 11 defensive contributions in the one game where he didn't hit the threshold, so narrowly missed out. And Spurs actually have some decent fixtures coming up. Sunderland at home in 20, Bournemouth away in 21, and then they have a home game against West Ham, and then they go to Burnley. So a chance for Thomas Frank to get their season back on track and Bentancur to rack up those DEFCON points. Another option for you for Spurs is Xavi Simons, who is suspended until January the 7th. So he will miss the Sunderland game, but he will be back for the Bournemouth game. And as we said, Spurs' fixture run is looking better. Bournemouth away, West Ham at home, and Burnley away would be Simons' first 3 games back. And how Spurs need some sort of creativity in the heart of their midfield. So you'd think that Simons will walk straight back into that team and hopefully for them deliver a few attacking returns. Sunderland have 2 away games across game weeks 20 and 21. They go to Spurs and Brentford. Simon Adingra did not go to AFCON because he was not getting the minutes at Sunderland to warrant a place in his national team squad. However, he has, as a result of Sunderland losing so many African players, started 3 of their last 4 matches. He's got a goal in that time as well. Spurs defensively suspect. Brentford not the best either. He could well benefit from their inabilities at the back. And Brian Brobby is a similar option for you. He started 4 of the last 5 matches, 0 returns from those games, but he has racked up 0.82 XGI. So it seems like it's only a matter of time before Brobby gets on the score sheet again. West Ham United have 2 massive games in game weeks 20 and 21. They go to Wolverhampton Wanderers and then they go to Nottingham Forest. Lucas Paquetá got a 13-point return against the Seagulls in game week 19, a goal and an assist for him. He is across most of West Ham set pieces. He is their penalty taker, and they are currently in a key fixture spell. They have Nottingham Forest, Sunderland, and Burnley in their next 5. So we're banging the drum for Paquetá again because you need to play those fixtures. And if you want a safe DEFCON pick and you're in a bigger league, Mateus Fernandes is an option for you. He racked up 17 defensive contributions against Brighton. It's the 7th time he's hit double figures for DEFCON in his last 9 matches, and he's reached the threshold across that time on 5 different occasions. And then we talk Wolves, of course, who have a home game against West Ham in game week 20, and then they go to Everton in game week 21. Again, it's difficult to recommend any of their players. They're not going to be keeping clean sheets. They have got a few midfielders who may offer you the potential of DEFCON returns, but really, we're looking at Tolu again, who has started the last 2 matches, got 2 attacking returns in his last 4 games. And West Ham, who they play in game week 20, are ranked 19th for goals conceded and 19th for expected goals conceded. So Wolves will get chances in that game, you would think. And there is all sorts of talk that Jorgen Strand Larsen will be leaving Wolves in the January transfer window. If that's the case, Tolu will become their first choice starting forward and therefore is a decent option as a 3rd striker for your draft team. So like game week 20 and 21 top picks. First of all, Vitaly Mykolenko, but I've put his name there. Really, it's any Everton defender because of the fixtures that they have. Brentford and Wolves at home. Everton have kept 4 clean sheets in their last 6. They take on a Wolves team who have the lowest expected goals ratio in the league and have scored the fewest goals. So you'd have to fancy them to get a clean sheet in that. And then they have a home game against Brentford, who are ranked 17th for away form and have scored just 8 goals on the road all season. So if you can get a Mykolenko, an O'Brien, a Tarkowski, even a Nathan Patterson, who started in the absence of Michael Keane in game week 19, it is well worth doing. Tijani Reinders remains one of our picks for this week. He's got 4 goals and 2 assists so far this season. City have 2 home games, change the game. So he's another decent pick if he's free on your waivers. And we just mentioned him, Lucas Paquetá. He's on penalties. He's on set pieces. It's important if you get him in that you hold him throughout this fixture period. I know some managers brought him in a couple of weeks ago. He didn't return and they got fed up and put him back on the waivers. Well, that was short-sighted to say the least. When you look at the fixtures that they have, he's already rewarded owners with a 13-point return against Brighton, and they have Wolves, Nottingham Forest, Sunderland, and Burnley in their next 6 games, which will make or break their season. So you'd expect Lucas Paquetá to step it up in those games. A couple of longer-term picks for you as well. Kai Havertz is back from his long-term injury layoff. We mentioned it earlier, but he has actually got a pretty impressive attacking record since joining the Gunners. In his last 2 seasons, he's had 51 Premier League starts for Arsenal, and he scored 22 goals and got 13 assists. So 35 attacking returns in 51 starts for Havertz. That is pretty solid, and it would not surprise me at all if he ended up being Arsenal's first choice starting striker for the rest of the season. Jeremy Doku, we mentioned as well, he's returning from injury. Only Ryan Cherky, his Manchester City teammate, has created more big chances than Doku this season. And Brennan Johnson is set to leave Spurs for a significant fee, which means he will be moving to a club where he will be first choice. And over the last 2 seasons for him in the Premier League, 50 starts, 16 goals, and 18 assists. So there we have it, your Game Week 20 and 21 to-do list. First of all, beware the chaotic fixture schedule. There is next to no time to sort your team out between Game Weeks 20 and 21. Beware of rotation. Teams will make lots of changes between these 2 game weeks unless they're a team like West Ham and they need to play the likes of Paquetá because they have very few options. You look at a team like Arsenal, who have got a very big squad. You would expect Mikel Arteta to make changes between Game Weeks 20 and 21, although, of course, they have Liverpool at home at the Emirates in 21. So maybe you can look at Game Week 20 with a view to a Hincapié or a Marino. Keep an eye on those pre-waiver deadline press conferences as well. They always give you a clue as to what may or may not happen and can help shape your waiver picks. The post-waiver deadline press conferences offer you a route into free agency as well. And then for the big stuff, follow us on our socials on X and Instagram and Blue Sky. We're FPL Draft Zone on X and Instagram, FPLDraftZone.bsky.social on Blue Sky. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. And please tell your friends so we can up those subscriber numbers. And if you're listening to us on podcast form, please leave a 5-star review. 5-star reviews only, please. And maybe 1 or 2 kind words wouldn't go amiss either. Right, that is it for this week's edition of the FPL Draft Zone. Good luck for the remainder of Game Week 19, and then it is all eyes on Game Weeks 20 and 21. So I wish you good luck in those 2 game weeks, and until next time, it is bye for now.